I don't really know how this happened, but the BRZ has been pink for almost a year now, and this is the first YouTube video that I'm posting with this car being pink. It's been almost a year of me only either posting the Z or just not posting the BRZ at all. Instagram and TikTok has already seen the pink BRZ, but if you guys don't follow me on Instagram and TikTok, almost a year ago, we repainted the BRZ. It used to be purple, and now it is pink. Now, technically, the color of this car is actually called Ruby Star Red. It's by Porsche. I can't even begin to understand how it's been almost a whole year since I've posted this car on YouTube, but today we are doing something pretty exciting. Today is going to be the first step in doing the turbo build on the BRZ. I haven't really talked all that much about it because I kind of wanted to just let it happen and then talk about it. Some of you guys might remember we were originally going to 2JZ swap this car. Unfortunately, we didn't go through with that. I ended up selling everything and I ended up getting a Nissan Z. That's the Z that you guys saw building on the channel, the gray one. Yeah, that's the reason why we didn't go through with the 2JZ project. But now that the Z is kind of in a position where it's somewhat built, I really don't need to work on it. It can kind of just sit there. I'm happy with how it sits. Now we can get back to the BRZ, and I don't want to do a 2J swap anymore. I don't know why. Before I did, I just don't want to do one anymore. I decided to go a different route. I decided to do a custom turbo setup on this car, and we'll get into everything like the turbo setup and what we're using and how we're doing it. We'll get into all that in another video. In this video, we are going to be preparing this car to be pushing some high horsepower. Now, because I want to be able to push some good numbers on this car, we need to prepare this car in order to make some good numbers on the dyno. You can't just throw a turbo in a car and expect it to push good power and be reliable. It's not going to happen. We need a couple of things to make sure that we can push that power. One of those things is a clutch. Now, this is the Fx400 from Clutch Masters. I already opened it up because I like laying everything out in front of me before we actually start the project. This clutch should be good for the power level that I'm aiming for. Now, the power that I'm going for is about 400 horsepower. Let's say 400 plus. Now, on a stock motor and stock trans BRZ, that's pushing it a little bit. It is pushing it, but you know what? I was a little weary on what clutch to get, but I've heard some great things about Clutch Masters. From what I've heard, their warranty is great. Their products are amazing. It has an OEM style feel to the clutch pedal. I really don't want a super heavy clutch, so we're gonna go ahead today and install this thing. I am really excited. With the Clutch Masters clutch, we also got a new throw-up bearing. Definitely need one of these because apparently the OEM throw-up bearings on these things are like poop. Clutch alignment tool, and then we got a bunch of bolts. Ooh, also one thing to note, this is the Clutch Masters clutch. So the Clutch Masters clutch is very specifically designed to work with the Clutch Masters lightweight flywheel. You can't use your OEM flywheel if you decide to go with a Clutch Masters clutch. So we have a new Clutch Masters clutch assembly along with their lightweight flywheel. And since we're already going through the effort of dropping the trans, doing a clutch drop, we might as well upgrade another failing point of these cars. I love these cars, but they do have some failing points, and one of them is the clutch fork. I've never had a bad experience with the BRZ clutch fork, but apparently the OEM clutch forks, this is a clutch fork by the way, the OEM clutch forks are really thin and they just end up snapping over time. Essentially they just break and then you have no clutch and then you gotta drop your trans again and it's no fun. So I figured since we're already going through the trouble of dropping everything, let's just go ahead and upgrade the clutch fork. This is a Varus Engineering clutch fork, and then this is also the Varus Engineering pivot ball. What I found really cool is that the Clutch Masters clutch actually comes with a little sheet that gives you all the torque specs. So does the Varus Engineering clutch fork. That definitely helps. And finally, since we're going to be dropping the trans, we have to empty out the trans fluid and replace it. Rather than replacing it with the OEM trans fluid, I went ahead and just got some Motul 7590. A lot of guys recommended this if you're beating on your trans. Now, I'm not really going to be beating on my trans, but figured since we're upgrading everything else, let's just go ahead and upgrade the trans fluid. So if I ever do want to beat on my car, I know that I have the proper fluid that can handle the beating that I give it. Now, if you're only doing the trans fluid, you only need 2.2 quarts, I believe. So essentially 3. Now, you can see that we have 4. Since we're already doing the trans fluid, we might as well do the diff fluid. So we're going to be changing out the trans fluid and diff fluid, replacing it with some good Motul. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we lift the car up in the air and drop the trans, there are a couple of things we have to do, like deal with everything in the engine bay. So behind the intake manifold on the driver's side, we have our sleeve cylinder right over there. Got two 14mm bolts, I believe. You just gotta undo those. Then have a ground, some wiring harnesses, and then finally the bell housing bolts. We just need to get whatever bell housing bolts we can access from the top and remove the starter. Right over there, we have two wiring harnesses and then a ground right over here. We got the starter right over there. Undo the starter, loosen all the bell housing bolts that you have access to from the engine bay, and then we can lift the car up. The car is up on the lift now. The shield that covers the transmission, or half the transmission, that shield is off. What we are going to do now is make room for the transmission to come out. So in order to do that, we have to take the front pipe off. 2 bolts back there, 2 bolts connecting to the overpipe, and then 1 bolt right here. Front pipe should just drop down. Once the front pipe is out, we have to take the drive shaft off. Nothing necessarily hard yet. It's just time consuming things. Fuck. Damn it. That sucks. Trans fluid is all flushed out. The diff fluid is dripping out right now. With all the trans fluid out now, we can start to get the trans out of the car. We have this trans brace right over here that we have to disconnect. And then we also have all the bell housing bolts. I think these are all 14 millimeters. We're about to start loosening up the transmission. We don't want it to fall on us, so I'm gonna put a little stand underneath. That way it just holds the weight of the transmission. The last thing you want is your transmission falling out of the car. That wouldn't be fun. So there's this little pin that you need to pull out in order to get the trans to drop. Keep in mind, we still have like the trans brace semi-connected. All the bolts are out of the bell housings. Essentially the last thing that we need to take out before we actually drop the trans. Now there's 2 of these pins, one on the left side and one on the right side. I've been stuck on this one pin for the past like 20 minutes. I finally got it out. I was trying to take the pin out just where it was. It felt like the pin was too long because it was hitting the trans tunnel. So what I did is I loosened the bolts just a little bit, let the transmission drop, and then I found a sweet spot where I can move around the trans left and right. So I jacked it up. Once I was able to move the trans left and right just slightly, I took a pry bar, pushed it towards the right side, and pulled the pin right out the left side. So I'm gonna do the same thing the opposite way for the right side, but in case anybody is ever stuck with these terrible pins on a BRZ when they're doing their clutch, you guys know what to do now. That took not even 1 minute, and before I was stuck on it for 20 minutes. Pry bar and move the jack around. That's all you do. With pretty much everything out now, it's time to drop the trans. I would like to have had a trans jack. Unfortunately, we don't, so we're just gonna kind of man it out. Hopefully we don't drop trans. I'm really hoping we don't. We're using some heavyweight stands just to kind of help us balance the jack, but once we actually get the trans out of its little hole, I don't really know how this trans jack is gonna kind of, or this heavy duty stand is gonna come down. I'm kind of trying to figure everything out. You guys are gonna see how we do it, but yeah, I'm a little nervous. The trans is out of the vehicle. That was actually a lot easier than I thought. Definitely took a toll on my back on that one. My back's gonna be hurting for the next, I don't know how long, but the trans is now out, baby. Gotta get the old clutch out, put the new clutch in. Honestly, this clutch is still in like really good condition. The car doesn't even have 9,000 miles on it. We're gonna change out the flywheel, change out the clutch, torque everything down to spec, and then also change out the throw-up bearings. Let me get this clutch fork out and I'll show you guys the old one versus the new one. Clips are out, so throw-up bearings should come right out. So apparently these throw-up bearings are one of the biggest failures for these BRZs. Apparently the clutch fork and the throw-up bearing are like one of the biggest things that go out on BRZs. You don't even have to push power for these to go out. Apparently they just go out even just stock. You can definitely kind of see like this is the OEM one and then this is the aftermarket one. The aftermarket one is so much beefier than the OEM one. This freaking thing is beefy, man. I'd be surprised if this broke. Old throw-up bearing is going in the trash as well because we have a new one. This is just the one that came with the Clutch Masters clutch. Old clutch is now out. It literally looks like brand new. There's only about 8,000 miles on this thing. The new clutch is officially installed and this thing looks freaking baller. New clutch fork and the new throw-up bearing are now in. I'm not gonna lie, this whole process was a huge pain in the butt. I had to reference a lot of other YouTube videos in order to get this project done. The other YouTube videos that I referenced could explain things better than I can. So if you guys are stuck on the certain parts of this clutch install when you're doing it yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description to all the videos that I referenced, to exactly what I referenced and what time of the video that I referenced according to where I was stuck. I think that'll help you guys out big time. It'll save you guys a bunch of time, so I'll leave that all down in the description. But everything is now ready to put in. This is all greased up, ready to go. Clutch, pressure plate, flywheel, everything is torqued down. I double checked everything. I think we should be good to go. Let's go ahead, throw the transmission back into the car.